There are things that may look like trash at first glance, like old frames, faded papers, broken rings, or items that have been sitting around the house for a long time. But did you know that sometimes there are things that seem worthless at first glance, but if you examine them closely, they can actually be worth millions of dollars? But what are these things? That's what we're going to find out. But before we start the discussion, I'd like to ask you to give this video a like and please subscribe to our channel. This is a huge help for us content creators. So let's get started. Number 15. The $4 paper. In 1989, a man in Pennsylvania bought an old painting at a garage sale. He didn't like the painting. He only wanted the frame. He only paid $4. But when he got home and removed the painting from the frame, he found a hidden paper at the back. It was old, folded, and looked like it hadn't been opened for a long time. When he had it examined by experts, that's when he learned the truth. It wasn't just an ordinary piece of paper. It turned out to be an old copy of the Declaration of Independence, the document America used to declare its independence. It became even more valuable because it was one of the first copies printed in 1776 after so many years. After all those years, only a few copies like this remain. So the paper he thought was simply hidden behind the frame became a very important piece of history. In 1991, it was sold at auction for over $2 million. By 2000, it reached over $7 million. Imagine that a painting bought just for its frame actually had a hidden paper worth millions. If he hadn't taken apart the frame, it might still be hidden behind an old painting today. Number 14. The lost golden egg. A scrap metal dealer in America bought a small golden egg at a garage sale. His job is to buy broken jewelry, old watches, and metals that he can make money from. So when he saw the golden egg, he immediately thought he could make money by melting it down. He bought it for $14,000. But when he had the golden egg appraised, he found out that he wouldn't be able to get his money back, that he had lost money. So he just put the small egg aside in the kitchen. It stayed there for several years, as if it had no value. Until one day, he searched the internet using the name written on the small clock inside the egg. There he found an article about the missing Fabergé egg. The Fabergé egg is not an ordinary decoration. It used to be made for the royal family of Russia. It is expensive, rare, and full of history. When he compared the picture on the internet to the egg in his kitchen, they looked almost identical. So he brought it to the experts. There it was confirmed that this was actually the long-lost third Imperial Fabergé egg. It was made in 1887 for the wife of the Russian emperor. After the Russian Revolution, it was lost for many years. Experts had been searching for it for over 90 years. And the funny thing is, it wasn't found in a palace or a museum. It was found in the kitchen of a man. The man almost melted it down. Eventually, it was sold to a private buyer. The exact price was not disclosed, but it's estimated to be worth around $33 million from something he thought was a failed purchase. It turned out to be one of the most important treasures ever discovered. Sometimes luck doesn't look like luck at first. Sometimes a loss turns out to be worth millions once you realize what you have. Number 13. The Superman comic in the wall. In 2013, there was a man in Minnesota who was fixing up an old house. While he was taking down a wall, he found an old comic book inside. It wasn't placed in a cabinet. It also wasn't hidden in a box. It was actually inside the wall itself. The comic book was old, and the paper had turned yellow, but it was still intact. And the most surprising part, it wasn't just an ordinary comic. It was Action Comics #1. This was the first comic where Superman appeared. In 1938, this is where one of the most famous superheroes in the world began. Back then, this comic was cheap. It only cost 10 cents. And because comic books were seen as just for kids back then, many copies were damaged, thrown away, or lost. No one back then thought that a cheap comic would someday be worth millions. That's why Action Comics #1 is extremely rare today. According to reports, fewer than 100 copies are known to remain. Some copies have been sold for millions of dollars if they're in good condition. But the copy found inside the wall was already damaged. While the house was being renovated, it got damaged. That's why it didn't reach the highest price. But even so, it was still sold at auction for $175,000. Imagine that, a comic book that used to cost only 10 cents became almost $175,000 after being found inside the wall. Until now, it's still unclear how it ended up there. Maybe a kid hit it. Maybe it fell while the house was being built. Or maybe it was used along with old papers inside the wall. But what's certain is that it stayed hidden quietly for more than 70 years. And when the wall was open, one of the most important comic books in history came out. Number 12, the 10-pound diamond ring. In the 1980s, a woman in London bought a ring at a car boot sale. It's like a garage sale where people sell old stuff. The price of the ring was only 10 pounds. The woman thought the stone was fake. She said it just looked like a big piece of glass, so she didn't keep it in a safe. She also didn't have it insured. She just wore it on ordinary days. She used it while cooking, while cleaning, and while going out. For almost 30 years, she wore the ring thinking it was just simple costume jewelry. But one day, someone noticed that the stone was unusual. They said it didn't look like ordinary glass, so she brought it to a jeweler to have it checked. That's when the truth came out. It wasn't glass after all. It turned out to be a real diamond and not a small one. According to Sotheby's, it was a 26.27 carat diamond. That's huge. You'd hardly think it was real because it's so big for an ordinary ring. The Gemological Institute of America also confirmed that the diamond was genuine. Eventually, the ring was put up for auction, and in 2017, it was sold for £656,750. That means the ring that was bought for just 10 pounds ended up being worth 100,000 pounds. The most surprising thing is, it wasn't kept in a vault. It wasn't in a museum. It wasn't guarded by security either. It was just on a woman's finger for many years. She wore it every day, and no one knew that she was actually holding a great treasure in her hand. Sometimes the most valuable things don't look expensive. Sometimes it just looks too ordinary, so no one believes it's real. Number 11, the $3 ancient bowl. In 2007, there was a family in New York who bought a small white bowl at a garage sale. The price was only $3. By its appearance, it looked like an ordinary bowl. No drawings, no noticeable colors, and it just looked like something to display at home. So when they got home, they just placed it on top of the fireplace. It stayed there for several years. No one knew that the simple bowl was actually very old. In 2013, they had it examined by an expert. That's when they found out the truth. The bowl actually came from the Northern Song dynasty of China. That means it's almost 1,000 years old. This type of bowl is called dingware. It's famous for its simple yet beautiful craftsmanship. It has thin walls, its color is white, and it's important in the history of Chinese pottery. When it was brought to Sotheby's, they thought it might reach several $100,000. But when it was auctioned, the price went even higher. It was sold for $2.2 million. Imagine that. A bowl that was bought at a garage sale for just $3 became worth millions. Its appearance didn't change. It's still a bowl. The only thing that changed was what people knew about it. When they didn't know its history, they only saw it as worth $3. But when they found out it was actually 1,000 years old, it became a treasure. Here you can see the big difference between price and true value. Sometimes something is cheap not because it has no worth, it's cheap because people don't really know what they have yet. Number 10, the $7 Renoir painting. In 2012, there was a woman who bought a small painting at a flea market in Virginia. She wasn't really after the painting. What she wanted was the frame. The painting just came along with the cheap item she bought. She only paid about $7 for it. When she got home, she hung it up in her house. For her, it was just a simple painting. Small, dark, and it didn't look very expensive. But her mother noticed the name on the back of the painting. It said Renoir. Pierre-Auguste Renoir is a famous French painter. He is one of the well-known artists in art history. So they brought the painting to the auction house to have it examined. There, it turned out that this was not just an ordinary painting, it was actually made by Renoir. Its title is Paysage Bord de Seine, or landscape on the banks of the Seine. It is estimated that its value could reach $75,000 to $100,000. But before it could be sold, a problem suddenly came up. According to the Baltimore Museum of Art, the painting belongs to them. They said it was missing from the museum in May. They showed documents to prove that it was part of their collection. Because of this, the auction did not push through. The case went to court, and in 2014, a judge decided to return the painting to the Baltimore Museum of Art. So the woman who bought it for a low price did not get rich from the painting. She didn't get the big money, but she got a unique story. A painting that was lost from the museum for more than 60 years. It ended up in a flea market, was hung in an ordinary house, and eventually returned to its true owner. Sometimes the treasure you discover doesn't always end up with you, because if something was stolen, no matter how many years pass, it still has a true owner. Number 9, the $10 outlaw photo. In 2011, a man bought an old photograph at a flea market in North Carolina. His name is Frank Abrams. He only paid $10. The photograph was not printed on ordinary paper. It was a tintype, an old type of picture printed on a thin sheet of metal. In the photograph, there were several men wearing Western clothes. It looked like a real old photograph from the time of the cowboys. That's why he bought it, because it had a unique appeal. When he got home, he hung it in a room that he was renting out on Airbnb. Many people slept in that room. Many saw the photograph, but no one noticed that there might actually be a famous person in it. One day, Abrams watched a documentary about Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid is one of the most famous outlaws in the history of the American West. While he was watching, he noticed that there was a man in his old photo who looked like Billy the Kid. That's where the investigation began. There were experts who looked at the face, clothing, the period of the photo, and other details. Some believe that one of the men is indeed Billy the Kid. Some also said that Pat Garrett might be in the photo, the legendary lawman known for killing Billy the Kid. But it's important to make this clear. Not all experts agree. Until now, there is still debate about whether it really is Billy the Kid in the photo. So it shouldn't be said that this is definitely true. But if it is confirmed, it would be extremely valuable. A confirmed photo of Billy the Kid was once sold for $2.3 million. So this $10 photo could possibly be worth millions. From a cheap photo at the flea market, it ended up in a safety deposit box. It's no longer just hanging in a room. Because that photo might not just be an old cowboy photo, it could be one of the rarest photos of a legend in American history. Number 8, the flea market code machine. In 2017, there was a collector in Romania who found a strange machine at a flea market. It looked like an old typewriter. It had a keyboard, it had heavy parts, and it looked like an old office device. He bought it for $114. To the seller, it just looked like an ordinary old machine. But it wasn't. It was an Enigma machine. During World War II, Germany used the Enigma to keep their messages secret. To put it simply, it's a machine that turns letters into code. If you don't know the right way to read it, you won't understand the message. This was a big part of World War II history, because breaking the Enigma code helped the Allied forces understand some of Germany's secret messages. One of the most well-known names in this story is Alan Turing and the team at Bletchley Park in England. The machine that was bought in Romania was sold at auction for over $51,000. It didn't reach the price of other rarer Enigma machines, but that's still a big profit. From $114, it became over $51,000. What's funny is, at first glance, it just looks like an old and broken typewriter. But to someone who knows how to recognize it, they're actually holding history. Sometimes something doesn't need to shine to be valuable. Sometimes it looks old. It looks useless. But when you know its true purpose and story, that's when you'll see its value. Number 7, the 75-cent loss record. In 2002, a record collector found an old vinyl record at a yard sale in New York. It didn't have a nice cover. It also didn't have a clear label. It just looked like a simple old record. He bought it for 75 cents. That's even less than $1. But it turns out this wasn't an ordinary record. When it was examined, It turned out to be a rare acetate record by the Velvet Underground. The Velvet Underground is a famous rock band from New York. This included Lou Reed and John Cale. They had a huge influence on punk, alternative rock, and indie music. The record that was found contains early versions of their songs before their official debut album was released. According to Pitchfork, this record was bought for 75 cents and was later sold on eBay for $155,401. But the first buyer backed out. Afterwards, it was sold again for a lower amount of $25,200. Even though the highest price didn't push through, that's still a huge amount compared to what he paid. From 75 cents, its value became thousands of dollars. The funny thing here is the seller might not have known what he had. For him, it was just an old record. But for music history, it's very valuable, because sometimes an old record without a cover isn't trash. It might actually be the missing sound of a famous band before the world knew them. Number 6, the old table worth a fortune. In the 1960s, there was a school teacher in New Jersey who bought a small folding table at a garage sale. The price was only about $25. It didn't look good. It had stains, was old, and looked like it came from a damp basement. But he needed a table for his house, so he bought it. For many years, he used it like an ordinary table. It could be used for eating, for putting things on, or for everyday use at home. He had no idea that it was actually special. After several decades, he brought the table to Antiques Roadshow. Here, experts examined the old belongings of ordinary people. When the experts saw the table, that's when its true value was revealed. It wasn't just a simple folding table. It was actually made by John and Thomas Seymour, well-known furniture makers in Boston back then. According to PBS Antiques Roadshow, the table is a Federal inlaid mahogany card table made in the late 1700s. To put it simply, this was an expensive table back in the old days in America. It was made by skilled craftsmen for wealthy families. The expert estimated its value to be between $200,000 and $300,000. But when it went to auction, it fetched an even higher price. It reached over $500,000. Imagine that. An old table that was just bought to be used at home ended up being worth $500,000. The table didn't change. What changed was how people recognized it. Sometimes, the old things we just put stuff on actually have a history we don't know about. Number 5, the $5 Warhol sketch. In the early 2000s, there was an art collector who bought some old drawings at a garage sale in Las Vegas. He only paid $5 for the whole bundle. At first, it looked like he just got some ordinary old pictures. But while he was looking at one of them, he found a sketch hidden behind the frame. The drawing was a portrait of the singer Rudy Vallee, and according to some reports, there were people who said it was possibly made by Andy Warhol when he was still a child. Andy Warhol is one of the most famous artists in America, but it's important to clarify this. Not all experts agreed that it was truly a Warhol. Some said it could be real. Others said it wasn't. So it's safer to say that this is a so-called Warhol sketch, but not everyone is convinced. Nevertheless, because of the possibility that this was made by Warhol, its value was estimated at millions of dollars. Imagine that. A drawing that was just hidden behind the frame along with $5. Things that could possibly become extremely valuable. Sometimes the important thing isn't what you see in front of you. Sometimes it's actually behind something you thought had no value. Number 4, the dusty Stradivarius violin. There are old violins that seem like ordinary instruments at first glance. They're in attics, cabinets, or tucked away in old cases. But sometimes a violin like this can become extremely valuable if it's a real Stradivarius. Antonio Stradivari was a famous violin maker from Italy. According to the Smithsonian, he made over 1,100 instruments, and only about 650 are known to still exist today. So if a Stradivarius is genuine, it's extremely rare. But there's a big warning. Not every violin with a Stradivarius label is authentic. Many copies have been made over the years. That's why it needs to be examined by a real expert. They look at the wood, the shape, the varnish, and the craftsmanship. If it's proven to be authentic, its value can reach millions of dollars. That's why some families are surprised when the old violin they were about to throw away actually has a significant history. Sometimes the old instrument quietly sitting in the attic is actually worth more than the house it's hidden in. Number 3, the blanket, worth more than a house. A man brought an old blanket to Antiques Roadshow. For him, it was just an old blanket. It used to just sit on a chair at home. But when the expert saw it, he asked him to sit down first. That's when you know something unusual is about to happen. The blanket turned out to be a Navajo First Phase Chief's blanket. It was made in the mid-1800s. This is not an ordinary blanket. In the old days, it was used as a symbol of high status. This means that not just anyone could wear it. According to PBS Antiques Roadshow, this kind of blanket is extremely free. So when the expert revealed its value, the owner was almost speechless. The once ordinary blanket at home is estimated to be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and could possibly reach over $1 million. This is the reason why this scene went viral. It's not just because the blanket is expensive, but because the man's shock was truly genuine. In a single moment, he found out that the blanket that had been in their house for so long is actually worth more than many houses. Sometimes something just looks like a simple cover for a chair, but in the eyes of an expert, it turns out to be an important piece of history. Number 2, the $5 mystery painting. In 1992, a retired truck driver named Terry Horton bought a large painting at a thrift store in California. The price was only $5. He didn't buy it because he liked art. He bought it as a joke for a friend. It just looked like a messy splash of paint, but his friend didn't like it. So he tried to sell it again. An art teacher saw it and said that it might have been made by Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock is a famous American painter known for drip painting, or the style where it looks like paint is splattered on the canvas. That's where the long conflict began. A forensic expert said that there was a fingerprint that could possibly be connected to Pollock, but many art experts did not agree to call it an authentic Pollock. They said there was a lack of clear history about where the painting came from. That's why, until now, it hasn't been fully authenticated. There have been offers reaching millions of dollars. But Terry Horton did not accept these offers because she believes its value would be even higher if it is proven to be authentic. Her story even became a documentary. But in the end, the painting remained a mystery. For some, it's just a $5 thrift store painting. For others, it might be a missing Pollock. Until there is final proof, it remains one of the most well-known mysteries in the art world. Number 1, the vase on the shelf. In 2010, there was a family in London cleaning the house of a relative who had passed away. While they were sorting through the old belongings, they found a large Chinese vase. It had been in the house for a long time. It just looked like a decoration on the shelf. They didn't know where it came from. They also didn't know how old it was. But instead of throwing it away or giving it away, they brought it to an auction house. That's where they found out its true value. According to Reuters, the vase actually dates back to the time of the Qianlong Emperor of China in the 1700s. This means it was made for the imperial court or for the emperor's high-ranking family. At first, it was estimated to be worth several £100,000, up to over £1 million. But when the auction started, everyone was surprised. Many buyers bid against each other. It kept going higher and higher until it reached £43 million, or approximately $69 million at that time. A vase that the family thought was just an ordinary display at home became one of the most expensive Chinese antiques sold back then. This is the most important lesson on the entire list. Not everything valuable looks expensive. Sometimes it just looks like an old record, like an old blanket, like a violin in the attic, like a painting that looks like a joke, or it just looks like a vase on top of a shelf. But when you learn its true history, that's when you'll see its real value. So sometimes, before throwing away old things, it's good to take a closer look first. Because the thing you thought was worthless might actually be the most valuable thing in the whole house.